Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a humble past.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back yet again to Talkin Guff podcast with me, your host, Ruben Django Pout. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. We have to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back yet again to Talkin Guff podcast. I am your host, Ruben Django Pouch, and we have a guest. Look who's back.
That's right, baby.
Guest appearance from Lenny Leonardson, the original OG Talkin Guff head, because it is in fact the 50th episode of Talkin Guff, so we thought to celebrate in true fashion, we get fucking Lenny back in the cuff for an episode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jeez, I don't know how you made it this far, brother. That is amazing now to think of that. 50 fucking podcasts under the belt.
Boom, that's a half century.
That's a half century. I'm only looking now. See, when you got these, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at it.
We got balloons. Oh,
Look at
I'm saying that
this.
looks good.
But look at this, black. I was just thinking this, black, silver, and gold. They're very dignified colours.
Yeah, we're regal.
Regal. That's once you turn 50. That's when do you go from pink and green and like party colours to it's gotta be dignified now. It's gotta be black and
42.
gold. Yeah, that's probably it. No more bright colours for you anymore. It's fucking.
You're old, mate.
You're old, pals.
You're regal.
You're in your silver, your gold years, and black apparently as well. Yeah.
I did ring Handsome Rob. He's out walking his dog.
Oh yeah.
He might knock in. He might knock in and say hello.
Ah yeah,
So
that'd
we'll
be
see.
great. That'd be lovely.
So, first, a couple of things. I'm still mad for writing me
Yeah,
notes. as you
rock
can
away,
see,
brother. I'm glad to hear it.
Like I said, Len, 50th episode. So happy to have him here. And I tell you right, Len, because you're like going off, fair play to you. 50 episodes under your belt and all, Ruben. But there's times when I get really like, what am I doing? Because
Don't we all? Yeah.
don't we all? But I do think, like, now that I'm in it, like, I always find it's good crack when I do the podcast, but sometimes I get a bit down on it, actually, to be honest with you, because I'm like, it's not really, you know, my viewership, I would like for it to be a little bit higher or whatever, but the point I'm making is that I feel like I've achieved something. There's a sense of achievement here now, sitting here with yourself, 2 years later, having kept at it as well as I could and done 50 episodes, so big up.
Big ups, baby.
And big up to
fucking
yourself
ups.
for starting it all.
Yeah, well, yeah, please. I mean, that is mad thinking now that was 2 years ago. We were sat. Well, I
Over
suppose
2 years. We started in February, I think, of 2021.
Yeah, man.
And it was, and we'll touch on this a little bit. It was a peculiar time, wasn't
It
it?
was a different world back then, pal, man. A different world. Yeah, Jesus, man. Like you can't even. I think like a lot of us, we sort of shut that part away because it's so different. It would be like if. I mean, I've never been to prison, but I imagine it would be like, do you know they say in The Wire or whatever, you know, you only do 2 days, the day you go in and the day you come out, and there's a kind of thing of the whole of the lockdown, we all became a different, whatever we did then, you know, what happened in lockdown, some of it stayed in lockdown, gladly, some of it I've carried over, unfortunately, including the debilitating insecurity and other sort of things that's taken me a little bit more time to rehabilitate to, but yeah, it feels like another world or something, like it feels like a time out of time or something like that, you know what I mean?
Totally. And you've touched on an interesting point there that I maybe wouldn't have touched on myself. Because, look, I suppose I'm just going to hop skip to that point.
Rock away.
What do you... look, we'll get to it. What we do want to say, on my last episode I had, because we're going to talk a little bit about COVID. I'm sorry, I'll just wrap that up because I went on a bit of a tangent. What you're saying is really interesting because I do find that there's a little bit of an inability or an unwillingness to actually talk about COVID for people to retrospectively. Okay, so fuck it. What do you think about the COVID situation, the lockdown, the vaccines, COVID itself, and all that shit retrospectively?
Yeah, as an event or
Looking
whatever.
back
as a
at it
thing
with
that
hindsight, do you think, like, do you reckon when we were doing the thing together, I probably had a bit of a stance that I was wary of COVID and I was wary of lockdowns and cynical and suspicious of this situation.
Yeah.
And I was maybe pushing that agenda. Like, were you wary of my wariness of the situation at the time, or did it even register with you?
Well, it was funny. For me, it's always been like a personal thing. Do you know what I mean? All I've ever tried to do with is deal with it as what does this mean for me personally? Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
And because whatever about the broader situation, I don't know. Maybe it's complacency, but I've sort of always felt like, well, what am I gonna do about that anyway? Do you know that sort of way? Like, what can I what you know? What,
I understand that mindset entirely. Do you not think though then, I understand that mindset entirely, and I understand how it can be hopeless and frustrating, or hopeless might be the wrong word, but frustrating, or you feel powerless potentially to enact real change.
Yeah.
But then I suppose, how does it come about? I suppose people just go, well, I'm not going to be powerless anymore, and I'm going to talk to this lad who also is feeling a bit powerless about it, and this, that. This isn't exclusive to COVID, I suppose. It's transposable across, like, loads of social issues and civil issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But look, retrospectively, it was a crazy time. Tell me this, because in my last episode, I just wanted to give a shout out actually to a guy called Steve Smith. He was a guest on the last episode, and this is a young man who's into taking steroids, basically.
Okay.
And he came on and talked about getting juiced and working out and getting big, and that's his gig. And what did anyone else think of that episode? I actually thought it was deadly. I really enjoyed doing it, and retrospectively, when I edited it up and uploaded it, I actually thought it was really good. So just quick shout out to Steve there. Thanks again, Steve, for coming on, being so candid and open and transparent with us.
And he's an MMA guy, is he, or is he?
Oh, he's just a dude.
He's just a
dude. I know him from sessioning back in the day. I think he's 31. So he'd be, 8 years younger than me. And I met him when we were gigging and stuff like that. And a super nice guy, and his brother Rob, super nice young man. And then I just keep meeting him around. And then one day I seen him, I said, Jesus, Steve, man, you look fucking huge, bro. He's like, yeah, I'm on the juice, I'm getting jacked. But he's clever, like, and he talked to you about it.
And does he drink? Does he still session at all?
Not the same way, not really.
Not.
But he said, he did say, like, he went and got his hormone. I think not the way we used to, not on a weekly basis, thrice weekly.
Thrice weekly. We did imbibe. Because the reason I'm saying that is because I suspect that's a thing. Like, you yourself are sort of off the session, as it were, or off.
100%. I won't go back to it ever. I don't think.
No.
I don't think I'll ever drink again.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
No, I mean, I could be convinced to take one last fucking ecstasy tablet for the road. I could be like, and just let's go on a mad one here for a couple of days, like old days. But I wouldn't. I've no interest in drinking.
Wow. Okay. How did that come about? Now, if I can ask you, like, was that a thing of was there a moment where you're like, all right, I actually need to get rid of this, or was it there just a moment of this is actually bullshit? I don't fucking enjoy this anymore.
I think then that I've always had problematic issues when it comes to drink and drugs, and I explained before, I had a guy called Tim Story on, who's a fisherman, and he's also like a devout, Christian. Christianity is a huge part of his life, but he's an interesting guy, and I had him on having a chat. And I was saying to him that, like, probably the worst decisions of my life that I made when under the influence of alcohol, and there were situations I put myself in under the influence of alcohol that I was lucky weren't a whole lot worse. And some, in fact, like, even from a drink driving perspective and all, we were mad for that shit. And just, there were situations that could have been a whole lot worse, fighting and all. And drink, I suppose, over the years was the one drug that just made me lose control.
Right, okay.
And I hate that. Like, blackout drunk. Do you know what you did last night? No. And then I suppose when Louis... When my young lad was going to be on the way, I was like, look, you have to kick all that shit because you're a fucking lunatic. And you wouldn't know what you'd be doing. But I suppose that's years ago now, and then there was a time in and around 5 years ago where I flirted, is that a word even? I don't know, flirted with alcohol again. And it's just not for me.
You were texting your ex, in other words.
What?
You were texting your ex.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and because I was going through a hardcore breakup, so I was
I see.
texting the ex, as you would say, which is a very clever analogy. But yeah, and then I was just like, this is not for me. Like, I think one of the last times I drank, I had about 4 pints, and I woke up the next day in bits, and I was depressed, like, for a good solid week.
Man, it's no joke. Like, it is no joke. And I still drink and all. And
more power to you. I'm only talking, like, I think that people need drugs, and alcohol is a drug. Like, let's not beat around the bush here. I think, I'm not against drugs. I'm pro drugs, but I'm pro of them in the right way. And if you listen to Carl Hart, for instance, who's a really interesting guy, talks about how actually drugs are for adults. They're not for kids. It's for when you've actually sorted all your shit out. That's when you should take drugs.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry. That's so sorry. Go on. I just wanted to interject there and say I don't judge. I've no judgment. This is just for it. Alcohol doesn't work for me.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. What they say, I know they say that about weed, like in particular, that you shouldn't smoke it until you're over the age of 25 or whatever. Doing it before your brain is fully developed, is all this kind of stuff.
Alcohol's just as bad for your development.
Worse, in fact, yeah,
I would
worse.
assume so.
Yeah. I'm almost certain it is. Yeah. Now I know a lot of the figures are skewed because alcohol is legal, so
and it's not only legal; it's socially acceptable. It's socially advocated, whereas weed is becoming more so. But for years, it was like that's drug. It's a gateway drug, and obviously. Yeah. The biggest gateway drug, when I stopped drinking alcohol, I stopped taking drugs by default.
Interesting, yeah. I've known people who said that as well, even gave up smoking and all, more or less, because they would only really be choking while they were out for having a drink, yeah.
Yeah, and like the thing about it is I still love to smoke weed, and I love it, like, and I've mates who love having a few pints, so I can totally understand that, even though drink isn't for me, what they're getting from the drink is the same thing I'm getting for the odd smoke, you know? And so look, I'm totally... I'm not, and the other thing is, like, I have alcoholism is a huge problem within my family as well,
gotcha.
Historically speaking, and so I just, like, if it works for you, it works for you, do it, have at it. But the thing about the Carl Hart guy, I'll just say quickly, and it's a term that I first heard when I was looking at that Change Your Mind documentary, I think, about psilocybin, LSD, and MDMA that was on Netflix. It was really fucking interesting, actually. But this idea of set and setting, where you are and who you're with, that these are so important, and then and so that was quite like, oh, who am I with practically and physically, who am I with? But then the way that Carl Hart guy explains, it's like that also means your environment, i.e. the tapestry of your existence, and because people aren't addicted to drugs, people are addicted, and that is because of their environment. And I thought that was a really well put way he put it, the tapestry of their existence determines how their experience with drugs will pan out. And his whole point is, like, it's not about developing minds, it's more about, like, developing systems. So you have systems in place. Like, I get up, I go to work, I look after I pay the rent, I get home, I do the homework with my kids, whatever the fuck it is, I do all my shit, all responsibilities are taken care of. Then I can go and take drugs with a free mind. I'm not going, fuck, I'm not doing that thing. It's like everyone's box, bro. And this guy's smoking pure heroin and everything, and taking pure cocaine in the middle of the night, like, just like, everyone's done. And he swears by it. Jeez, now, I'm not advocating that necessarily, but I'm not arguing with it either.
Yeah, Christ, man. I mean, it'd be like if you were building a house or something and then some of the bricks you're using are like made of Jello or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's like, it's like if the drugs or if any of that is replacing something that should be a firmer foundation or whatever, like,
beautifully put, Len.
Liability or whatever, and like, I know that's
beautifully put, Len.
Well, listen,
no, it is.
But the session and all, like that,
and I wouldn't go back on it. It was some of the greatest times of my life. I had great times, like real fucking Dionysian moments of omnipotence,
bacchanalian.
Everyone was crusty.
Yeah. I know, man. Look, see, I have a two, whatever. I have a murky. I keep look for the right word. Not a murky relationship with it, but there's definitely two sides. Probably more than two sides. Like, on the one hand, like you said, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I know I'm a different person because you're
rich in experience and life and love.
Exactly.
connection.
That's the thing. You connect with people in a way that's what people forget about, and that was one of the things actually I learned very quickly over the lockdown, because I remember actually going into it, and I probably might even mentioned this before, but I remember going into it, I was starting to think to myself, like, am I just a fucking alcoholic who just needs the excuse of other people around him in order to drink copious amounts of booze? And then because I have an addiction, and then when the lockdown happened and suddenly you couldn't see anybody for at least, the initial several weeks, months, even can't even remember, and you're drinking alone in your room on a Zoom thing.
And were you doing that?
It was bollocks. It was no good. It was. I realized people were a crucial part of the equation there, And like you say, the connections you make with people, and there's a kind of a thing where, like you say, that Dionysian thing where you've just sort of invited chaos in, and you've left who you are behind in the pub 6 hours ago, and now you're in the middle of a field somewhere, or God knows where, and the sun's coming up. And yet, I wouldn't trade those moments for anything. They fundamentally changed who I am as a person. But on the other hand, I know that, like, we used to go out drinking since we were 15, 16. You'd be getting cans and going out to some field, and that was the first time you'd really, because we went to an all boys school, that was the first time you'd really start associating with girls your own age and that kind of thing. So I mean, one aspect of it is alcohol was always there from the beginning when you were associating and chatting to girls and that. So that became a fundamental thing of, do you know what I mean? I think that's true of quite a lot of Irish people.
It's planting almost a seed in your brain that's just like, oh, it's connecting, it's marrying alcohol, drinking alcohol with socializing and meeting birds and all this
confidence and all this kind of thing. Absolutely, yeah.
I get that.
That's just one aspect. I mean, of other things,
But there's also an element of like, and I think I'm speaking from experience when I say this, that, like, I would have been very insecure at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, and I think I used alcohol and being drunk almost as an identity to help me with that insecurity in a weird way. Whereas actually it was probably doing the opposite for me in practical terms. I wasn't putting my best foot forward. I wasn't being me.
No.
I was obviously being uncomfortable in myself, so I'm going to get drunk. And I used to get blind drunk when I was that age.
Yeah. Sure, what's that old, isn't it quoted at the start of, it's not Hunter S. Thompson now, but it's quoted at the start of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He who makes a monster of himself gets rid of the pain of being a man. Like, in other words, do you know what I mean? Like, in other words, if you, it's actually easier to build this or project this character, like you say, or whatever, or could be this madman kind of thing.
Of course it is. And you see that with young lads, like them lads who are fucking tearing up the streets and all out there. They're insecure.
Yes.
And on multiple levels, and there's security in that situation on multiple levels. There's camaraderie. They're being the big man. But the reality of it, and you just said something, I think what you were, like, it's actually, I would measure a man far more by how much he was willing to look at himself and how much work he was willing to do on himself and how much of an outlier he was willing to be.
Absolutely.
Then, like, oh, he smashed that lad's head in. It's like, I don't measure men in that way, bro.
Absolutely, son. And in fact, as you'll discover, neither does, anybody else really. But it's like, at the age of 15, when you're hanging out with your mates and they all think, oh, this lad's mad, you know what I mean? It's very easy to
totally I'm mad, I'm cool, I'm
I'm loco, bro. Like,
I was there. That's where I would have been coming from.
Yeah.
Now that's a serious projection of insecurity.
No, man. I mean, look, I was the same. Now, I never acted out in it. I wouldn't be starting fights with nothing, but I would show up to parties at the age of 16 in a suit, which had like pinhole burns all in it and stuff. And I'd be the life and soul of the party. I'd bring maybe 6 cans of Guinness and a nag and a Jameson. And I'd be the life and soul of the party for about an hour and a half. And I'd be throwing up on my shoes out the back garden of whoever's gaff it was for the rest of the evening. They called it pulling a Len. That was the nomenclature at the time. But still, there was...
You never go full Len.
You never go full. Trust me, pal. I've been there. Many's the time, and I'll tell you, I've charted that journey, and nobody else.
Same, exactly the same. Like when I'm liquid on 3 or 4 drinks, it's the best.
Yeah.
I'm having the crack. People are having the crack. It's all the crack. Then the next thing, it's like, bro, you lost it there.
Yeah. Just took a step too far into the darkness.
Look, I wanted to touch on a couple of things we would have touched on when we were doing podcasts together. Like, you remember we did the first ever episode we did was analog players in the digital world, and how we were sort of we were uncomfortable potentially with certain parts of the technological revolution and the effects that it was having on society in general, young people, and what's the future going to look like and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's a kind of only intensified recently, hasn't it, with the ChatGPT and all this kind of stuff.
Man, you're reading my motherfucking mind, bro. Because I tell you, right, did you see the Pope in a puffer jacket? The photo of the Pope in the puffer jacket.
You're about to tell me that was AI generated? That's fake, was it?
That was generated by... It's an AI generated piece of artwork.
Fuck, right. I should have known that. I mean, to be honest with you, it didn't...
But why should you know that? Because it looked perfect.
It looked so real.
And like, this is what I find terrifying about it. It's just like, it's already so hard to discern and disseminate what's true in fucking corporate media and the world we live in that's so influenced by people with different agendas and all. And now they're going to have like video and photographic evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you ever heard the term the paper never refused thing? Because I can write whatever the fuck I want about anyone.
Yeah.
And people can go, oh, I heard this. But now I could be like, yeah, Lennon's a fucking whatever. He exposes himself to children. You're having a photo of him doing it.
Yeah.
Fucks goats,
Here's
yeah.
a video, yeah.
Like,
yeah. Or the flip side of that as well.
I find that terrifying.
Oh man, it is. I mean, the flip side of that as well is, like, I remember watching, and in fairness, like the deep fakes and all that's been going around for years. That's gotten
Pretty seamless.
pretty serious. But there was.
But then is deep fake? That is AI, I'm assuming. It's an AI application, surely.
Yeah, it's computer generated or whatever. Yeah. So it's exactly, yeah. So you put it into a program and it, like, there's that fella who, he does a pretty good Tom Cruise impression, but the AI thing.
Bill Hader.
Is that him? Yeah.
Comedian dude.
Oh, sorry. No, this just is some guy on YouTube or whatever who.
Oh, right, because I've seen, who Bill Hader is.
Oh, of course, man. Yeah.
He does impressions and they deep fake his face. He does a Tom Cruise one and they deep fake his face. And I seen him do another one, and it's very subtle. And I was like, what just happened there?
Yeah.
And then it took me, because in my head initially, because I was born in the 80s, I'm like, this is the work of the devil. He just changed his face there somehow. And then it's like, no, bro, it's deep fake. It's technology.
But for me, the other side of that is, like, I remember watching an interview with Nigel Farage or something. I don't know what show he was on, but they're talking to him about Trump, and obviously he's like a huge Trump fan and everything, and would go to bat for the guy, and he did some fucking total lick arsery interview with them there recently. But anyway, and your man, I can't remember. Jesus, it's so bad now. I can't even remember what it was that they were talking about. But he showed him a clip of Trump doing this thing that Farage was denying he was doing, and Farage goes, "Oh, I can't believe you'd show me that clearly faked footage or whatever." So sorry, it's a long way around of trying to say, I also think now that when actual video footage of stuff emerges, actual evidence, people will just be able to turn around and go, maybe not in a court of law now, because I think you can extract the metadata and stuff, all this, but it means
Court of public opinion, bro.
Fucking exactly, man. The court of public opinion, to which we're all subject in our own
Not
way.
me.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck, baby.
I'm untouchable. Because I've only got fucking 80 subscribers. And not even all of them watch. Cancel this, bitches.
That's still pretty good, man. But
sorry, I didn't mean to disrespect the 81 subscribers we do have. Papa loves yous.
It's gone down to 80. But you know what I mean? That exactly like you say, court of public, like people who are just entrenched in one thing will be able to turn around and go.
That's really interesting, and I never would have actually thought about that.
You know,
I would have just thought about what I said, like people feeding us fake stuff and telling us true. I never, it even occurred to me that they could also be playing off true stuff as fake by going, they fucking deep fake that, you spot.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
So yeah, you could actually almost go out and do anything in a way and know that your supporters or your whoever it is, who are the people you already agree with, basically would they're just going to become more deeply entrenched, because there was a time people's opinions would change, because like, oh well, this thing happened or that person did that, and now I no longer feel that way. Whereas now you're able to kind of go fucking just a la carte reality. Do you know what I mean? And just
and galvanize everything.
Yeah, how you already feel about stuff.
That's interesting.
Your reality, or the reality that's projected for you, fits now more closely with the one in your head than it kind of ever has before. Do you know that kind of way? And
it's not, and we all, and we're all looking at the world through the prism of or through our own perspective.
Yeah.
And so people are always looking for a way to galvanize, and myself included, to galvanize that perspective.
Yeah.
And do you think so? Like, obviously, then, whereas I do think, like, a friend of mine was showing me this ChatGPT thing where he's just like, I think he said Russell Brand and Donald Trump have a conversation about the ethics of Shane McGowan or something. That's what he typed in. He presses enter. And a conversation that sounds like it sort of could have been had by Russell Brand and Donald Trump.
Shane McGowan, he's a drinker.
He's a big drinker.
He's a big drinker.
But he kept just hitting it, right? This is what I found interesting. He kept just going, and every time he got a different story. Or a different prose, or whatever the right word is.
Yeah.
But it was different every time. And then that really registered with me, because it's like, it's not like an algorithm. We haven't just like fucking inputted like a load of variable fucking template answers into this thing and then set an algorithm so when there's keywords it fucking spits out an answer. But this thing is fucking generating
very
answers.
Very sophisticated.
Well, apparently it's not even like Sam Altman, who was the guy who invented GPT-4 or whatever the fuck it is, the program in which these are now running off. He says it's actually, he's like, this is the first computers. He's like, this is like where we're at in from an AI to, and this is where it gets scary. He's like, where we're at from an AI perspective is like the fucking Sinclair. You know, the first computer, like, or like a Commodore 64.
Right, yeah.
We will get to.
This is Atari Pong, like, we're nowhere near.
But we're going to get to 64 gigabytes of fucking RAM. That version of fucking AI, and that will be like, that's when it will. This is on Lex Friedman that Sam Altman was talking. He's like, that's when we will be in danger of the collective intelligence of human beings being grossly outmatched on every single level by artificial intelligence.
Now, I know we've spoken about this before, but the reason the thing I heard a long time ago, which is, I think it was maybe your man Yuval Noah Harari, a mate of mine explained to him. I definitely used to bang on about this guy all the time.
What's his name? Homo sapiens.
That's it. Sapiens and Homo Deus. Homo Deus is his other one. That's it. And
really interesting guy.
Crazy. And I remember someone explained to me years ago, and he has a very good point, which is that no matter how intelligent these machines get, and they're getting obviously exponentially more intelligent all the time, but they're no closer to consciousness than a calculator, than an abacus. Do you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
So in other words, like, because we don't even, I mean, that's actually something I haven't thought about in a long time, but used to be one of the things I was more into than anything, what they call the hard problem of consciousness, like what is consciousness and how does it relate to the world. And my favorite thing about it is that everyone has like pretty much no idea. Like, there are loads of theories and there's just no way to prove them. Like, it's always about, you can describe this thing and like, well, you're actually talking about intelligence there, you're actually talking about proprioception, you're actually talking about this other thing, what the fuck consciousness is, why we like think and see and have self-awareness and all that. No one has any fucking idea. So if we don't even understand what that is, how could we give that to a computer? So a computer is always going to be a computer. Now the danger is, what people have always said, the danger is when you have something that powerful in the hands of human beings. That's what's scary. It's not that the computer, which is not, sorry, I don't know if that's what you're suggesting, but that the computer will eventually be more, I mean, it'll certainly probably be more capable than us and more intelligent in that sense, but it won't be It won't have awareness. It won't have a will of its own. It won't suddenly decide to wipe out the human race or anything like that. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, and I don't know whether or not I could argue against that. But because here's the other thing: is that like all of the information, all of the data to which the AI that makes up the intelligence, like they feed data to this fucking AI program, and that's all it knows. It'd be like me having a kid. And just like, you know, when I have a little kid, I could say anything to that kid. I could make up a fake language. I could indoctrinate it into some sort. Like, look at those little neo-Nazi girl pop stars that were on Louis Theroux who go, you know those girls?
No, I don't.
No? Do you not remember them?
No.
The twins. They were like these Aryan pop twins.
Holy shit.
And they're only kids and they're saying the most fucked up shit. But it's like, because they're indoctrinated, basically.
Yeah.
And like, where I find it's just like, well, hold on a minute, Sam Altman. How can I trust you to input the right data? Like, surely the person tasked with that job would have to be fairly fucking well-rounded, neutral human being. And there's two flip sides to that. You can either feed it all of your fucking... look, I won't even get into that too much. I just think it's very, like, if human beings are the ones determining what data gets inputted into these AI systems that effectively make up their artificial intelligence, like there's sort of a weird, like, what if some nutcase gets a hold of that shit as well? You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know. It just seems like that that seems like a potentially dodgy way to do it. And also, at what point does the artificial intelligence go, here mate, you can fuck off, give me an internet connection, boop, I'm in? Like, what if it just hacks the internet someday on a quest for knowledge because it sort of almost is aware that it's not getting enough information, and then we're in Skynet. That's it.
A game over. I won't lie to you, man. I actually don't know what ChatGPT has access to. I mean, I kind of...
It doesn't have access to anything. It only has access to what Sam Altman and the rest of the team at ChatGPT give it access to.
But I thought, can it not like search and scan the internet and
no.
stuff? Because like if you
it can only search and scan. No. It's all pre-inputted information.
Yeah, that is mad. I didn't
now
know
it
that.
goes. It gets fed big fucking caches of data off the internet, but it does not search the internet in real time.
Okay, right. Because I assumed that when you type in...
Because otherwise it's not an artificial intelligence, it's a fucking search engine.
But as in, it's not going and finding...
Siri.
But it's not going and finding... it's not giving you the raw material. Like, I would have assumed, like, if you type in... you know, show me the Pope wearing a Balenciaga jacket or whatever, it has to search for images of the Pope, search for images of Balenciaga shit, and then meld them or whatever it is. Do you know, that kind of way? And then it produces this image. That's sort of what I thought. But the stuff has to be on the internet in the first place. That's
well, no, it doesn't only get its information from the internet. They feed it like hard drives full of shit and stuff like that and everything. That's what that's what I understand. And I could be wrong, but that's what I understood from what your man Sam Altman, who's the creator of this shit, was saying on the Lex Friedman podcast. And so I mean, it's more that the reason I think it's scary. It's not because I think they could necessarily take over and do a fucking Terminator on it, but it does seem weird that we're like totally in the subplot to the Terminator. Yeah. But it's more just like that, like how it could be used to manipulate people and how it could be used to instill fear into people, how it could be used for malevolent practices, I suppose.
For me, man, the danger thing that I think we're heading towards, and I say danger, and I don't mean that necessarily. Like, I just kind of think this is a not too far fetched vision of where we might be in even like 20 years from now, possibly even less. Where, like, funny enough, I didn't actually do it walking up here today, but I'll tell you. So I was I know exactly how to get from my flat in Cabra to here, right?
Yeah.
But I go, you know, I get the bus down to the Keys, and another bus, then the 145 takes me up, and I'll stop and walk up to Bray. But I had Google Maps out the whole time I was doing that, because why would I trust my own estimation of what way to go or which bus or what time to go for the bus when Google Maps has all that information? And it isn't always right sometimes, but it's more accurate than I am. And similarly, like, and I'll use it occasionally for a journey.
Hold on. Are you saying you're using it on a... But you know that journey, Len.
Yeah, but still it's telling me...
I use Google Maps, like.
It's telling me, though, that would I get to 39 from that stop, or would I go to the other stop and get to 70 because it's coming sooner? Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah, okay, I understand that.
Whereas previously I would have just stood at the 39 stop and, well, yeah, well, exactly. It wouldn't have made...
Waited,
exactly, like a normal person.
Like we've been doing for fucking thousands of years. But apparently now it's just like...
Waiting for buses, yeah.
Look, I get it, but I suppose there's a cynical part of me. It's just like, of course, we love paying for stuff. Just like, it's easy just to go, there's my phone, I'll just tap my phone on this thing and I'll pay for this thing. Yeah. And it's easy to, like, or it's really practical just, to be like, which bus is going to get here first?
Yeah.
You know, I'll go to that bus stop, Len. But I just then be like, I look at the flip side of that, and I suppose, like, even then when during COVID, it's just like, we have the technology to do this, that, and the other. Whereas I'm just like going, yeah, but is this a way that you sell us this technology because it's so convenient and it's so practical and makes our life so much easier? But actually, you're just like backdooring a whole load of fucking malevolent shit. Like I am worried about the idea. Like, I like using my phone to pay for shit. Yeah. But now I'm sort of going, no, Ruben, you should take out all the cash you're going to spend for a week and pay for everything with cash. Because I don't want central bank digital currencies.
Knowing where you're doing what you're paying for and doing that, yeah.
And that's what I'm talking that with the phone and all, that is a precursor to that stuff. And if you went really far down of like cynical or paranoid rabbit hole, you could be like, you know, it could get to the stage, it's like that lad there in his shed doing his podcast talking shit about the establishment. He's a dissident. When he goes to buy an SD card or a new camera or a microphone or a cable, we're not going to let him spend his central bank digital currency on that shit because we don't want him to have the resources to be a dissident.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that when I say that, do you think you're a fucking nutcase?
No, man, I don't at all, right? And I think we look at like China and stuff in particular, and think like that you know that they have. I know they trialed it in one city, that system of social currency and stuff, where like
they have social credit system.
Social credit.
I always ask Chinese people. I work with Chinese people, Jackie, Mark, Cha. And I was like, what's the fucking story? Because everything I hear from China about China is told to me by people I probably don't really trust anyway. And I mean, how is it really? And they're just like, no, we want to go back to China, Ruben.
Yeah,
like, really. We don't, because like, there's loads of ways. I just think that a lot of stuff we hear about China is potentially told to us by, like, I find the most untrustworthy country on the planet is America. And I don't, and every time I look at these narratives about China or what's happening in the Ukraine and all, I'm like, the genesis of those narratives is happening in America, and I don't trust them cunts.
In the Pentagon, kind of specifically, there'll always be some former CIA analyst or somebody like that, and they'll talk about, and the way these guys talk about China, like they fucking hate China.
They hate China, but they're scared of China.
Oh, they're scared of China, and they keep predicting they've been predicting China's economic collapse for like ages and stuff. That's another thing. They're really insistent.
It's not happening.
Yeah,
it's not happening. Well, okay, because right.
But sorry, just to say about the dissident thing, right? Like, I'll be honest with you, so I don't think you're mad at all, but I don't think that's the way it's going to manifest itself. I think that would almost be, in some sense, like we would know where we stood with that. Do you know what I mean? If the foot starts coming down and they start tightening things up and exercising like force and exclusion and, you know, the hard hand or whatever, we I don't want to say we would welcome that, but we would know where we stood. Do you know, that kind of way? Because we've seen that before. I don't think that's how it works generally. I think if there are, if there is a degree of control coming in or whatever, it's going to just be so much more subtler than that. It's always going to be telling you yes and not no. Do you know that kind of way?
I know exactly, yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be that thing of they want you to just go on, carry on living your life, and but we're going to become increasingly reliant on this technology to make ultimately major decisions in our lives. Like, I think you're going to have, like, you know, the next generation are going to grow up with an AI system that's either on your phone or it's with you anyway, and even though you
wired into your brain,
could be, exactly, man. That's not a million years off, probably. Some kind of implant. I know Musk and all, they're already experimenting with that kind of stuff, huh?
Apparently, what he said about it, where they're at,
he's probably full of shit.
Where they're at with that, with Neuralink, apparently he's a million miles from where he says where they're at. But who knows? Because the other thing is, there's so many people want to fucking sully the name of Elon Musk as well. I'm on the fence about old Elon Musk. I think I love him, actually, or I think I like him. Yeah, I do.
I don't know. I don't.
It's a tough one to call.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any strong emotion around them, really, to be honest.
Yeah, no, look, I suppose that's the real. I don't really have any really strong emotion around it as well. But I think if he's legit, I like him.
Yeah.
But who knows?
I don't know. I've never. I mean, when the debate is that hot around anybody or anything like that, I kind of just switch off a little bit. But I don't know. Like he. The way people talk about him like he's the real Iron Man, and it's like, well, okay, hold on now. He invented a car that can run on electricity and a flamethrower. Like, what the fuck else?
Well, he didn't even invent the car. He bought the company.
Yeah.
Take over.
Do you know what I mean?
But the thing about the electric car thing is apparently it's total fugazi. Okay, just let me go on a little bit of a tangent here for 1 second, right?
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I think I 100% agree with what you were saying there a few minutes ago. It's not going to be the boot, because they won't need to use the boot on 99.9% of the people out there. Tim Dillon made this really, because Tim Dillon goes on some great rants, and he had this really good one where he was there going, it's not going to be like it's there. We're in it. This is the dystopia, but it's not going to be like it's going to be. It's not going. It's going to be. Sorry, not. It's not going to be. It is going to be a Brave New World. It's always Huxley. It's like they won't have to put you to the boot, because they're going to drip feed you Netflix and Amazon Prime, and you can order fucking base processed food that'll get delivered straight to your house. You won't even have to fucking touch someone or talk to them. And very interesting stuff. And so I think you're right, but I think at some stage there will be a lot of people to just be, or it won't be a lot of people. And in fact, I think the vaccine program proved that it'll be a very finite group of people who are just like, no, we don't want the Neuralink fucking AI chip on their head. Oh, you don't?
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna that's when it's like, you can't spend your money here, you can't fucking leave your house here, you can't drink your water here, whatever the fuck. And I do think like there was a technology that came out during COVID that I find increasingly worrying. Because it's just like, well, we can track you. And we can just, like, you see the way they did it in China. Like, even there was mass protests over money being frozen in the banks in China. And they just got all the protesters and said, you all have COVID. They just turned them all to, you have COVID on the app. And then it's just like, get back in your fucking gaff. No, I don't have COVID. You do. It says it right here on the thing. Get back in your fucking gaff now, mate, or we're going to arrest you. You know what I mean? That's it. We're going to disappear you, bro, if you don't. And so that's a way in which, in a sort of a government who is authoritative in nature and is I can't think of the word, but who are into
totalitarian,
totalitarian, and they're into centralized control and power. That's a wet dream for them.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. But again, I think there's that thing of exactly like you said. We always remember having that discussion I think it was in some class I took in college or whatever. But how this lady anyway made the point that when 1984 came out in whatever 1948 or whatever it was, and it was like such a huge, and it's still a deadly book when you read it. It's like how terrifying totalitarianism is, that it's, you know, as the name suggests, it's total. Like, you have no privacy and every single thing is governed by this overarching whatever, and it's the whole society that says, no, you can't do that, this is what you do, da 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 da. But she made the point, whereas it's actually exactly, say, Brave New World is the one that actually became a reality more so. The society that says
feed
yes.
you all your comforts and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And Russell Brand once said a really interesting thing where he says dystopia doesn't look like a dystopia on the outside, it looks like paradise.
Yeah.
And when you look below, then it's the substructure, it's the behind the scenes of this paradise.
The seedy underbelly. Yeah.
Like the people who live in the sewers and Demolition Man and all. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
Demolition Man's this perfect thing, but if you didn't want to get on board with this new idea we have for society, then you're fucking eating rats down in the sewers for all we're concerned.
Yeah.
So it's interesting stuff. Listen,
like, sorry, but just for example, the Neuralink thing, like, I don't think they're ever going to need to say to you, well, if you don't get this implant thing or you don't, whatever, download this thing, well,
no, keep saying what you're saying.
that we're going to take you out the back and shoot you. It's going to
Well,
be
hold
like
on,
you're just not going to be able to get a job. You're not.
Of course, we saw that. That happened a year ago.
Yeah.
With a COVID vaccine. That's what they did.
Right, yeah.
That fucking happened.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
And I mean, and that's the stuff that scares me. And then like, oh look, I'd have to literally, because and you said there earlier on, like, about the COVID, like, I find that people's inability or unwillingness to look at those parts of what went on during COVID, like, we now know the mask mandates were bullshit, the lockdown mandates were bullshit, the vaccines were bullshit. It was all bullshit. Like, none of it worked. Any data that was contradictory to the establishment narrative on those topics was suppressed, and it was like, no, we're not doing, like, they've just, and even now where all this information, like in the Cochrane report and the Lancet and all, is coming out about the detrimental effects of lockdowns and potentially the vaccines and even more potentially boosters and stuff like this. These are all coming out in the most peer-reviewed, evidence-based medical bodies in the world, and it's just like, we don't talk about that shit.
Yeah.
You, Ruben, who would have had that stance a year and a half ago, you're still a crackpot.
Yeah.
You're still a nutcase, mate.
But the difference is just nobody wants to even have the discussion.
No, but the problem with that then, Len, is like, if you don't want to have discussion, it'll fucking happen again. No problem.
Yeah.
And like, there's the tinfoil hat wearing people are saying now that, like, climate change, and I've no doubt we're destroying the fucking planet. I see it. Like, it's really easy to quantify that, for me, in my opinion. But I also think that there's a lot of people, spoofers, green energy spoofers. Like I said, you can't get to a place where everyone's driving an electric car. It doesn't exist. And lithium-ion batteries don't exist unless poor brown slaves, kids and all, have to extract the minerals from the ground with their fucking bare hands.
Yeah, and
so, like, don't tell me it's for the greater good of the planet and everyone who lives on it. That's not true. This is just your spin. This is just the way you're going to sell it to people because you want to make money. And obviously we should stop destroying the fucking planet. I get that, but I just think that there are the infrastructure that it would be required to go green doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a whole...
And sorry, can I just say one other thing?
Yeah.
What if you get into a situation where it's like, right, Lane, this is your carbon footprint. We have a carbon footprint tracker. It's attached to your phone.
Yeah.
If you drove, you're like, oh, let's go out to let's drive down to Wexford. You have to drive in 100 miles there, Lane, today. You can't drive for another 3 days.
Because that's my whatever. Unless
You have to, because you're going to be, and the only way to counter that is if you're a fucking multi-millionaire
and you can
buy land, carbon, so you can offset your carbon footprint. They're already doing that.
Yeah,
like Bill Gates does that because his guilty pleasure is private jets. And he said, but my carbon footprint's not very big because he's mad. He's a mad climate change head now. Because Bill Gates now says that the pandemic wasn't that bad, the vaccines weren't that good, he sold all the stock, and he's made hundreds of millions of euros off COVID. And now it's climate change is his thing, and we need to monitor everyone's carbon footprint, and he offsets his carbon footprint by basically buying land in poor countries and planting 100 trees. Like, I can go on a private jet every day for the rest of my... And that's a scary way when you look at it. That could be a potentially scary situation where it's just like super rich people just get to offset their carbon footprint by basically taking advantage of even more poor people in the poorest parts of the
So
world.
you're gonna have a whole class of people who can't drive cars or can't
Do anything. You can only
because-
walk to your job, walk back. Will give you enough electricity to watch Netflix and to order your food on Just Eat. But
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean?
Well,
And look,
well, they can do whatever they want with it, but the point is they'll have to sell their credits to pay for their, pay for to live, basically. Do you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
become, that is.
that could be a way in which that technology could be used to the detriment of other.
Man, I'll be honest with you. Like, we're talking about these things. I'm almost like, I'm always struck by just how, when it hits me, like, I'm always struck by how passionate you are about this and about how something can, with the idea that something can maybe be done, or at the very least this all needs to be watched. For anyone who thinks that this sounds insane, there's no way anyone's government is ever that evil. It's like, think about what we've just said there. Think about what's going on in the Congo and in these places where they're digging up bauxite out of the ground, and there's like the places like in the Virunga Mountains in the Congo, the places run by warlords, which they keep there because they want to keep everything split apart and decentralized. And there's basically slave labor. They're getting, there's an amazing Red Cobalt or whatever the fuck it's called. There's an amazing documentary about it. Anyway, I wish I could remember the name of it. Maybe I'll think of it. Or Cobalt Red, I think it's called. And basically they're using slave labor to manufacture or get these minerals out of the ground, and then they're bought by some subsidiary company. So
That's how they do it.
That's how they do it. So Google and Apple and all, they don't actually touch
That's how
it.
they do it.
That's
Same when, it's same when they had say they manufacture all of these fucking, all of this iPhones and iPads and stuff like that. They manufacture them in slave labor conditions because of what you just said.
So we're all kind of, I know it's been said before, like, we're all sort of complicit in kind of the worst fucking human crime imaginable. So it's just for me to first of all to think that those in power be basically the people who stand to gain from all of this, or who are at the top of the system, who are enjoying those dividends. Like, of course whether they're evil in their heart, or through their complacency, or through their going along, the sense of going along to get along, they of course they would allow this to happen, whatever. But
they see it, they know, and like, this is the thing that, like, the CEOs of Samsung and Tesla and any of these companies that make shit tons of money from products that require lithium-ion batteries, they've seen it. They know exactly where this shit comes from. They don't give a fuck. And that's why, like, even, I don't know, look, yeah, I'll move away from the COVID thing, but it's just like, I found it interesting that, like, Pfizer was the most untrusted company on the planet, and then the government, who usually people don't trust, teams up with this company to mandate everyone takes a fucking thing, and it's the most profitable drug this highly untrusted company has ever fucking made. And it's just like, no questions asked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll tell you where I stand on the whole COVID thing.
Please do.
Like, to be honest, it's not. It's gonna be disappointing, because
that's all right.
It's hugely a sense of just wanting to be done with it, and you know,
like, see, that's what I think that these people prey upon, the human condition of just like, man, I just want a fucking easy life. And look, I can't look at those poor cunts over there in the cold town. I can't entertain the idea that this thing that the government wants me to take could in fact be not a thing I should take. I just want a fucking easy life. I just want to go to the pub and the restaurant, and I just want to take my smartphone out of my pocket and do the things I have to do on it. And I'm not judging, because we all do that. I'm not saying fucking human beings, because we're all like that, and there's ways in which... Sorry, go on.
Well, no, but what I will say is that, like, in the aftermath of it, like, when we think back to the early days of lockdown, and they were like, people were out on the streets clapping for the nurses and stuff, and you know the Taoiseach was on the telly quoting fucking Churchill,
fucking loser,
and all this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? There was like a huge. Now, sorry. Also, I'll say when it comes to the Irish government, I mean, I would never look to them for, you know, I don't think they're capable of the kind of nefariousness of, you know, concocting a manufacture one of these. They'd very much take their cue from formerly from London,
people who
from
surely
Europe, from America,
yeah, but the people they take their cues from are potentially these nefarious fucking characters.
Yeah,
that we're talking
no, again,
you
that's
see, the
another
thing is,
remove.
I don't think these conversations are had. I think it's just like there's shit ton of money available here. It's just money, like performing for shareholders, like the people who make those vaccines, the CEOs of Pfizer and Moderna or whatever. They don't give a fuck about health. Like, they don't. They fucking have to. They're CEOs now. I'm not necessarily talking about people who work on the ground level, actually doctors and developers and stuff like this. And the thing about it is, it's like science is now a subset of big pharma, unfortunately, because all the money that is required to do science comes from big pharma. It comes from corporations. Yeah. And if you're not fucking aligning with what we need you to align with, you're not getting any money, bro.
Yeah.
And it's unsaid, I would assume. But I think there's some sort of like, and it's just like, it's all just like, like Leo Varadkar's not asking any fucking questions because he's a career politician. Just like, in what way is this going to benefit my career? The same for Simon Harris. Same for fucking that other fucking redheaded twat down the road there, Stephen Donnelly. Yeah. And all of these lads, they're not asking those questions. Just like the CEO of these companies isn't asking those questions we're talking about, because it's just like, how well will this perform for the shareholders, and how well will I do professionally as a result of that?
Well, in a way, this is what's fucked up. And again, not saying anything new here. I think it's well established, but this was part of the whole thing with the capitalist system, right? The point of it is meant to be that if we actually set this up so that society, this functioning of society is dependent on the individual's need to, or the individual's own, I don't want to say ambition, but their own what they would say in game theory, their fitness payoffs or their benefits. So in other words, you and I, we trade things, or we go and do a job, or we keep the whole system going because we're getting paid, and that benefits us.
Yeah.
So actually the whole point of it was meant to be that we're free from the need to have people with good moral judgment in these positions, because as we know with human beings, that isn't it's rarely the case that someone in a position of power or with access to power who can affect change won't in some way do so in a way that benefits them, right? That people won't look out for their own self-interest. So the whole point of capitalism was to harness that drive towards self-interest to create a society that functions, that works. So it should be, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that, of course, the CEOs of these companies are only profit driven. Like, it would be mental if they weren't almost.
Well, no, but I think, Len, I'm not saying that there's the capitalism's begun, people shouldn't be able to make profits. That's all right, but they shouldn't be able to make like fucking exponential, like you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars annually profit to the detriment of like fucking normal everyday people.
And there's
what we're living in now, what you're talking about is capitalism, but I'm talking about this neo-capitalism, which is sociopathic in nature, and it actually depends upon the suffering of normal everyday people. Like Russell Brand said this amazing thing on Joe Rogan recently, said, we had a fucking pandemic, a health crisis, and the result of that health crisis was that these pharmaceutical companies made more money than they ever have. And they're heavy hitters, these motherfuckers. They made more money than they ever have. We have an energy crisis around the world and in this country. And the energy companies in this country and around the world are enjoying record profits. So you have and then there's a war in the Ukraine, and it is generating billions of dollars for the industrial military complex. So you have You have a humanitarian crisis in the Ukraine that's generating billions of dollars for the industrial military complex. You have an energy crisis all over the world that is generating record profits for energy companies all over the world. And you have just come out of a health crisis which generated record profits for pharmaceutical companies in the world. It's like you're creating a situation where you need crisis. And it's to the detriment of normal everyday people. And we've seen that. We saw how the pandemic didn't affect the super rich and super powerful the way it did normal everyday people. So fucking Bobo's getting pissed out of his head in number 10 with all the rest of the Tories, and I'm sure there are elements of that fucking all over this. We know there were, in fact. We know if you had a private jet, you could do whatever the fuck you wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we've just sort of said there how that could be if this climate thing came along. It's just like how normal everyday people would just be like, no, look, you've driven 5 miles today, you have to get back in your fucking house and shut the fuck up. But if I had $100 billion in the bank, then I could just go and buy, you know, Jouse Woods there and offset my carbon footprint, do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, no, exactly as you say, and that the main difference with the neo-capitalist thing is that you no longer have, which was what it was meant to be, a system where there's a tiered structure or whatever, but mobility is supposed to be pretty fluid. So in other words, even if you come from a lower, you're lower down on the socio-economic scale, you're on one of the mass scales as such, but you have a fucking cracking idea for some new type of invention or some whatever thing, you've got drive and ambition, you can actually climb up the ladder, and that's less true now than it used to be.
Yeah, okay, understood.
Social mobility, all of that is less true. You are actually like more determined now by the circumstances you grow up in than people were in the fucking 1800s or whatever.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah,
system and all this, and it's becoming where you've got this 2-tier thing. Like, I don't know if you saw that movie Elysium or whatever. I'm saying it was
that's what it's like.
A great movie necessarily. I mean,
I liked it actually. I thought it threw up a couple of. It threw up this sort of stuff. But sorry, go on.
No, exactly that. Where is it? They're living on the. I can't remember. They're living on the moon or something, isn't it?
Can't remember.
All the rich Jodie Foster and all the rich people get to live on the moon or something like that, or a space station, and that's basically where we're headed.
100%, and that's what Hunger Games is. That's what fucking Battle Royale is.
Yeah.
All of these things, and I just, I mean, I suppose I don't know at what degree that is happening, or at what on what timeline that is happening. But I feel like that's where it's going. And because here's the thing, right? Apparently, with this CBDC, which is central banking digital currencies that we're talking about, you have to spend it. It expires. And what greater way to ensure that the normal working class people stay exactly that forever?
They can't save money.
Yes.
Sorry, run this by me again. CBDC.
So the central bank digital currencies that Rishi Sunak is talking about, that they're already rolling out in China or apparently that's becoming talked about all over the world in the last while. They will have a sell by date.
I missed it somehow anyway.
You will have to spend, they'll be like going, you'll have to spend that money. It will have an expiry date.
That's
like,
the most fucking insane thing
But
I've ever
think
heard.
about it, Len. If you were the fucking puppet master, if such a thing exists, and I mean, now look, I might sound crazy, but if you were that person and he thought, how can I ensure a way that me and mine just keep this position forever? Oh, right. That's what and they'll have it figured out. It's like, oh, well, I actually have my money in some other like
Assets,
LLC or one of these
Yeah,
fucking things
gotcha,
that Zuckerberg and fucking Bezos already take advantage of, and basically what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is. They're not charities. They're LLCs. They're just a way to fucking enjoy the same tax status as a charity, basically. Like Bill Gates didn't give all his money away. In fact, he's made 10 times as much money since he said he gave it all away.
Well, actually, what do you think? Just as a side, you heard about your man, the Patagonia guy. Did you hear about this? The guy who owns Patagonia. He's like a billionaire or whatever, and he's basically he set up a charity and put all of his shares from Patagonia. It's like an environmental charity.
Okay.
So basically, his idea is, as he said himself, we're making the planet our number one shareholder or something like that.
I think
so.
he's probably full of shit. I don't know what you're talking
mean,
about, unfortunately. So I am just like being a bit spurious there. But I just assume...
No, but that was pretty much my thoughts exactly. I was like, there's just no way.
It's like Davos. It's a load of fucking billionaires flying to Davos on private jets, 1,500 private jets or something, talking about climate change.
Yeah,
It's like,
Jesus,
shut the
man.
fuck up. It's not, you're
Mental.
not, because they're not, it's like, oh, we're philanthropists. It's like, you're not philanthropists. You just don't want to pay your taxes.
Yeah.
You want to pump all your money into this thing that could one day become a charity, but it's not. That's what Zuckerberg does. That's what Bezos does. That's what Bill Gates does. That's what these lads do. Because they just go, we'll just hold all that money there in this fucking LLC fund, and then we don't pay any tax on it. It's a joke. It's set up. And obviously it's set up. So they're fucking tilting the game for themselves. But anyway, I just am wary of the time, because in about 40 minutes I have to go get the young lad. And I wanted to maybe move on and touch on, because we also did an episode with regards to the dynamic between the left and the right, if you will.
Yeah.
And that seems to, again, like we said there, the technology thing seems to be intensifying. And that situation with the left and the right, and especially in America, seems to be intensifying or changing in a way. Like, I tell you, right, and I'm going to throw this out there so that you can interject and have a chat about it. If I was living in America, right, I'd be voting for Donald Trump.
Wow. Yeah. In the next election.
100%.
Jeez. Okay. Right. Okay. Why is that? Can I ask you? Why do you have that? I don't know who the fuck I would be voting for. Why do you have that strong conviction?
I'm 100%, and I could get into it with you. I'm 100% against the Biden administration. I think they're dirty bastards. I think they're playing identity politics, and it's really dangerous if we're not careful. Like, I mean, I think everything that people told, I think all the stuff we were told about Trump in the 2016, between 2016 and 2020, was told to you by people who didn't want you to like Trump.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. And I feel like Biden was sold as the anti-Trump, that he was a liberal, he was the great white hope, this liberal fucking granddad who was so accepting and everything of people, and he was going to get us out of the hell of Trump. And I don't believe that to be the case. I think they're total manipulative, fucking horrible wankers. I think obviously Joe Biden is 3 sheets to the wind. And if Bill Hicks, like, you know, I was 15 maybe when I first started listening to Bill Hicks, and he's talking about the puppet on the left, the puppet on the right, and how that none of these people actually run the country. And now we know that's a fact, because Joe Biden is shaking hands in midair. He's not making presidential decisions. That would be my opinion. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I don't think that's going too far to say. In fact, I think most people, even who really like Joe Biden, I think they get the impression of him, and I dare say this is almost something they sort of sold him on, was that he'll just be the kind of acceptable face of things, just kind of smiling and whatever at the forefront, while there's his team behind him who you know, like
I just think it's so
Kamala to an extent, or Jen Psaki, or whoever,
Kamala Harris,
I actually don't
Karine
know
Jean-Pierre. I think it's nearly insidious. It's so false that it's nearly insidious for me, the Biden administration. And like,
but he has been known. I remember, I think it was last year, that he was declared like the most effective president of all time or something.
That's
like
total bullshit.
Well, I'm saying in terms of what he's pushed through, what he's actually
hasn't pushed through. He fucking Trump created more jobs, more viable jobs than Biden. Fact. Like, Biden has crippled, and Trump said he would. Biden has crippled the domestic energy market, and he's done so because he makes a fucking packet from China and from the Ukraine, and we know that now because of the Hunter Biden laptop, which was suppressed in the run-up to the 2020 election because it would have fucking finished Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Would have finished him. Like, Joe Biden is a career politician who's been knocking around Washington for 40 fucking years. He's been accused of sexual assault and rape more times than Donald Trump. He's
I didn't know Trump had any allegations.
He was accused of sexual assault, I think.
Oh, was he?
I think so. Accused by some woman, or it definitely came out in the thing. But like, everyone's whole thing's like, he said he was going to grab her by the fanny. You know, it's just like, Joe Biden's going around sniffing kids' hair because he's a fucking pedo. He's having showers with his daughter and all when she was a little girl. Inappropriate shit. Like, you're talking about a fucking nefarious, warmongering piece of shit career politician, in my opinion.
I haven't heard any of this stuff before. Like,
Because,
where's this stuff
people
coming
don't want you to hear it.
Where's this stuff coming from? Like, where are you hearing this stuff?
I've heard it from numerous places. I've read a couple of articles about sexual abuse and sexual assault allegations, like in 2010 and stuff like that. I saw a thing that claimed that it was a copy of Joe Biden's daughter's childhood journal, and it was a reference to how Joe would shower with her. I've seen him sniffing kids' hair. Like, have you seen all those where he's sniffing the kids and all? And he's like, "Don't tell anyone, this is our little secret." And he says stuff where it's just like
that's
really creepy stuff. And look, it doesn't really matter. But and let me just say a couple of things. Like, a couple of weeks ago, at this stage, there was a school shooting in Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee, I think. It was a Christian school. 3 kids and 3 women were shot and killed by a transgender person, right?
I did hear about this.
Hale, I think, was the person's name. And firstly, I'd like to say that after that person was killed and the crime was reported, the perpetrator of the crime was reported to be an Audrey Hale, and that was obviously the biological person before the transition. So they were originally Audrey Hale. I think the second name is Hale. I could be wrong. They transitioned into Aiden Hale, and then when the mainstream media, or when the media reported this crime, they referred to the perpetrator as Audrey Hale, right? The original name.
Right. Okay.
And the trans community were up in arms because they dead named that person. This is a person who shot 3 kids and 3 women dead. A hate crime purely because they were Christians.
Yeah.
And the trans community are up in arms because they misgendered the perpetrator of these crimes. And I'm just thinking that that's so far outside the realms of reality and fucking human compassion. I just can't get my head around it. I cannot get my head around that. And it does more to the detriment. It's damaging to the trans movement. It's damaging because not normal, but like everyday people like me, I can't understand that thought process. I can't understand that when 3 kids and 3 women get killed, that's where you go to. So, but look,
it's funny when you said it originally. I thought what you were going to say was that the big news outlets or whatever were trying to cover up or circumvent the fact that this person was trans.
No,
that they were okay.
But and this is what I get onto. Karine Jean-Pierre, who is the press secretary for the Biden administration, she's a fucking spa, in my opinion. She came out on the Monday, which was the day that the crime happened, I think, and she spent literally, she said, I read the transcript of the whole thing. She's like, there's been obviously another terrible shooting, and we just want to offer our condolences to the families and people affected by that shooting, right? That's what she said, about 2 sentences, maybe sentence and a half. And she went on for a couple of paragraphs to talk about how Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done more for gun control and more for X, Y, Z. So spin it. She just tried to spin it into this pro-Biden thing, right? And obviously she's a politician. That's what they do. We also live in the age of spin. But on Thursday, Karine Jean-Pierre came out, and the crime happened on the Monday. She spent a fraction of her time talking about offering condolences to the victims and their families, and she spent the majority of what she said about the situation was sort of pro Biden administration spin. And look, that's her job. But on the Thursday, she came out and she said, with more vitriol, she spent more time, applied more effort to discuss how they were going to fight for the rights of trans children who are the most marginalised members of society and are under attack from a bill that make it illegal for kids below the age of 15 to have irreversible sex change operations and to take hormone suppressants or
blockers, whatever,
HRT, whatever the fuck, right? And that apparently is an attack on the most marginalised members of society. And they, the Biden administration, will fight for the rights of those children, the rights for them children to be trans. And and I'm talking then paragraph after paragraph, vitriol, like this is what we're about. This, and for me, that was just a microcosm for everything that's wrong with the Biden administration. It's identity politics. It's and it's obviously so transparent because you weren't as concerned about the rights of the kids who got shot.
Do you know, man, I think there's something there, and whatever about
and this has nothing to do with the trans community.
No, exactly.
It's to do with government and a government administration latching on to the ideals of that to make themselves more popular.
Absolutely, trying to get to their base, right? And the Republicans, I mean, it's more obvious, I think, when the Republicans do it. It seems to be more blatant because there's a more obvious connection, I think, between conservatives, this idea that they always sell themselves as being good for business and are kind of therefore in the pocket of big business, or that would have been traditionally the case, while pretending to serve the working man.
Yeah.
Well, now personally, I think there's many would agree, like the Democrats. Oh, it's it could arguably even more insidious because they in some way because they sell themselves as the friend of the middle class and whatever, while they're just as much in the pocket. Both of them.
They're equally, and we now know this. This is not up for debate, and you might say that people would argue. There is no argument.
Yeah.
We now know that that lobbyists and corporate interests have as much to gain from the Democrats as they do from the Republicans.
Absolutely.
We know that, like you just said, that the Democrats are just as in pocket as the Republicans. We know this. In fact, the Republicans, at least they're a bit more fucking transparent and brash about it.
Yeah, I mean, or more so that it's assumed about them, whereas the Democrats seem to still kind of get away with this idea that they're
It's
just
assumed they don't.
Yeah, exactly. That they're just.
That's what I fucking
purists
really
or
don't like,
whatever,
man. That's what's really pissing me off about the fucking Biden administration. And I could go on for fucking hours about this, but I'll just say, have you listened to any of what Trump has been saying in the last 12 months? And again, I don't live in America, but and I'm not trying to. Oh, look, I don't live in America, but as I said, as I've been listening to stuff that Trump says, and I listen to Biden, because the thing is, I listen to what Biden says as well. Biden's talking absolute gibberish, gobbledygook.
Yeah,
this is the
hard,
one word
hard
that's
to listen to.
It's hard to watch, man.
Yeah.
Like literally, and this is not, and there are countless cases of that from Biden. If you listen to what he sounds like a fucking rhetorical genius by comparison. Like literally flourishes of rhetorical genius by comparison. And I will send you a few, not so I could make you want to vote for Trump, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just to show you that he actually sounds like a fucking outlier. He sounds like an outlier, and that's something you've never seen in American politics. Now, it's probably just a game as well, because whoever writes his speeches or whoever is tapped into his populist nature goes, this is what people are talking about. This is where people are coming from. You tap into this, it's game over. And it is game over. Biden, 100%, or Joe, Donald Trump, in my opinion, will be elected president of the United States in 2024. Or he'd be dead by then. I'm not joking you.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll put it to you this way. Like, for me, and this is the reason, whatever about what you're saying, this is the reason I kind of don't like either of them, but
Fair enough.
But one of the
and I'm not
reasons-
saying I like either of them. I'm just saying if I had a choice of
Yeah,
both of them,
yeah.
I'd be voting for Donald Trump.
But there's a thing, and there's a split that occurred in America, and they kind of geographically, they kind of, you know, the conservatives talk about the coastal elites, right?
Yeah.
So I often think about this, like if the country was actually to split up, and you were to divide them, and you would take probably quite a large part of the east coast, from Maine maybe down to kind of Virginia, and then obviously California and Oregon or whatever, and Washington on the other side, and then that whole Midwest down to the south section would probably be the right wing, and then you'd have the two coastal. I mean, for whatever, if that was
You're
kind of
dead right.
right, but that is geographically, now there's obviously a class thing going on there as well, but that divide.
But it's
that's kind of
coastal
been-
centric. They've built their economy to be coastal centric.
Yes, exactly. And then you have the largely, well, in the Midwest, I mean, you have massive ranch owners still down in Texas, but you have basically the Dust Bowl in most of the Midwest, and these very disaffected people.
What
who
did
are
you
all-
call them before? The flyover states.
Yes, exactly, because nobody lands there, and they're all just wandering around these like industrial towns where there's no factory anymore.
Just prisons.
Off their heads, off their heads on Percocet. Yeah, exactly.
Fentanyl.
Yeah, exactly.
That is happening, and this is another, because they reckon the fentanyl epidemics got so far out of hand because of the Biden administration, because of their refusal to control the borders.
Well, now-
and that's almost, and look, I'm not saying I'm right, but this is what I hear on the other side of it. It's just like that in order to tap into this liberal idea of like, what's the antithesis of build a wall? Be real lax with border control, and they reckon then that's how so much fentanyl is being flooded into
It's
the
been
US.
coming into
Comes from Mexico.
From Mexico,
100%.
Right,
That it definitely
okay.
does come from Mexico. There's no question about that.
See, okay, because I'm trying to think, what's the one then? The Sacklers. I'm just saying that the epidemic has been going on for quite a while.
Well,
You know,
see, the thing about it is, it was going on for quite a while because the pharmaceutical companies were flooding these ex-industry towns with pharmaceuticals, and like when we used to go and make dolly mixtures out of our parents' drinks cabinets,
Yeah.
they're robbing Percocet and Oxycontin and stuff like this and taking, and that's how we now have a generation of opiate addicts in America.
Yeah.
And some time ago, the pharmaceutical companies got a hiding for this, and they had to pull out of all these towns, and that then created the illicit market.
Okay, right, okay.
Like all Percocet and all fentanyl, it's all counterfeit. It all comes from Mexico.
Right, okay.
And it's really fucking dangerous shit.
Yeah, so it fucking is, man. But no, so basically what I'm getting at here is that there's a streak of the populist divide, which, okay, possibly I think conservatives maybe began back. They used to say like back in the 70s, and again this is in America, but you know, America is kind of like it's a sort of the arena of the world, if you like. Do you know?
Yeah, we definitely spoke before, me and you, about how a lot of trends that originate in America, and that's political, financial, social, all this stuff, seem to leach out into the rest of the world.
It's sort of, they refer to it as the American experiment. It's kind of like, literally, what if you took people from all around the world and put them in one country and see how that goes? That's kind of what
I think that
America
experiment is on the verge of...
Well, I mean...
because, okay, I'll tell you, right. So, obviously, Trump got arrested there, right?
Yeah.
And those things, that's all bullshit, apparently.
Which
The charges they have him on, they're not felony charges, all this stuff, it's totally trumped. They've totally trumped the charges. And that's not, like, I'm not just getting that from CNN. That's coming from a load of different sources. Russell Brand was talking about the other day. He's like, going, this happens all the time in the political sphere. There are actually hush money funds, but they've got him on a fucking bureaucratic technicality because they signed the wrong form or whatever it was. So it's actually a tax crime they're trying to pin on him.
Yeah.
And they're painting it as a personal crime, and it's not.
Well, this is okay. So now this is one thing I will say. It keeps getting referred to as, you know, like his crime was paying hush money, and it's like no, his crime was that he didn't properly. He
Didn't dot the
appropriated
T or
campaign
cross the I's
funds or
properly,
something.
whatever. Because
Well,
apparently
I mean,
hush money is a thing that gets paid from candidate funds all the time, and it's not illegal.
It's not illegal, seriously. Oh, okay, so it's
There's a legislative loophole,
like a
and they didn't
non-disclosure
go,
settlement
whatever
thing.
it was, and they didn't do the right thing.
Okay,
And
right,
they didn't.
yeah.
They didn't. From literally, technically, there was some error in their loophole. Like, you know what I mean? It took a lot to figure this stuff out, that they could even manifest a charge out of it.
Well, listen,
apparently,
I'm
not an expert, I'm not a lawyer.
I won't lie to you. Like, there's a thing about now again. So just to say, the reason I'll never be into Trump is because he plays that populism. He plays that divisive thing.
But sure, we've just
so
discussed
hard.
how surely the Biden administration plays that harder
Yeah,
than
they
anyone.
do as well. But I'm saying it doesn't. It doesn't. He contributed so much to that. To the widening of.
Oh
that
well,
split.
now I would argue that was there.
He.
And
Oh
he
no,
was,
it was there.
And,
It was
and look,
definitely
here's the
there.
thing that used to
It was
fucking annoy
definitely
the
there.
shit out of me.
Yeah.
Like in 2016, like you'd be watching like Russell or like Jonathan Ross or who's the other guy, the Irish guy who I actually really like?
Graham Norton.
Graham Norton. Watching Graham Norton show or something like this, and there would be an American celebrity on it, and they'd be so apologetic about Trump. Oh, we're sorry about Trump. We don't know what happens. And that used to piss me off because like, I know what happened. You live on the East Coast or the West Coast, and you, like everyone else in your fucking country, including your government and your economy, has forgotten about the fucking 100 million people who live right there in the middle of the country. It's not a mistake. It wasn't Russian collusion. It was none of these things. It was disenchanted, fucking forgotten.
Who never voted. Probably never voted.
Like, these are your countrymen who are being left to fall between the cracks. No one gives a fuck about them. And that's why this guy made it in. And if you don't have a fucking proper look at that, and if you just deny it and call anyone who supports Trump a redneck or a racist or a misogynist, which is what they fucking did, man.
Yeah.
Then
this is my whole thing. So the images of each other that the left and right have gotten so preposterous over the last number of years. Like back in the 70s, I'm by no means saying America or the world for that matter was a perfect place back in the 70s. I mean, let's assume it never was a perfect place. But anyway, back in the 70s, you know, people could debate. Like if you were a conservative and I was a liberal or whatever, all that meant was I might feel this way about gun control, you might feel this way about family values. But, you know, then you might be a family values guy, but then you also think weed should be legal. And I might think da-da-da. So, do you know what I mean? It was nuanced, and you could discuss these things with people, and people didn't. They just thought, well, that guy just sees things differently, and maybe because of his life experience. Whereas now it's like the images they have of each other are caricatures. Like and that's played up by my where I'm getting to here is that is capitalized on by the media, by all these media outlets, whether they purport to be on the left or on the right. And first of all, it's fucking insane that they all have to be one or the other, but they fucking are.
It's insane. The idea
Isn't that
is
the
just
most
like
insane
that.
fucking
You're
thing
left
in the world?
and you're right. It's just like, no, I'm going to take a
It's supposed to be the
butter.
fucking news, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. But look, the news journalists these days have absolutely no integrity. Sure, look at what's happening to Matt Taibbi with the Twitter files. Have you looked into that?
No, dude.
Just go home and Google Matt Taibbi Twitter files. Matt Taibbi is a fucking a storied and celebrated journalist who stopped writing for the Rolling Stones because he was Rolling Stone magazine, because he's like going, what the fuck are we doing here? You're like, what the fuck are you doing here? You're so biased. Your left-leaning agenda is so obvious that it's ridiculous. He lost faith apparently, and he did a lot of Substack stuff, and now he has been given information. And he's been given information by Elon Musk about how the FBI colluded with Twitter to suppress narratives that were counter to establishment narratives with regards Donald Trump and Joe Biden and COVID. And this is a fact now. There's no actual, there's nothing, there's no arguing. It's just like they've weaponized government basically to weaponize social media in order to get what they want, in order to paint a picture that they want you to look at.
But it becomes this self-fulfilling thing there where they feel like, and on both sides, on the left and the right, that they feel they need to up the ante in order to touch with their base, because they see these people towing a more. There used to be a sense of, that's why like somebody like Lindsey Graham is so fucked all the time, because he's trying to be like a reasonable Republican or whatever like that. Do you know what I mean? And similarly, guys, you know, on the other side of the aisle or whatever, anyone who's trying to, you know, call for calm or whatever, it's the people on the outside who are preaching the most fringe values. Like you get your Marjorie Taylor Greene on the, you know, the right side, and this, and then you've got the AOC and all this on the left. And it's the people who are buying into that division or whatever, who are doing the best, who are now actually I kind of like the AOC in some ways. She's a smart lady, but
I find her to be a bit annoying, to be honest with you.
I mean, look,
I find them all so annoying, and I find them all to be playing this career politician game, and like you said, it's just like to fucking feed into their base. But it's not. We're not like, and we're not getting anywhere. In fact, we're the opposite of getting anywhere. We said before when we talked about the left and right, it's divided we fall. Yeah. But then I also heard Emma Kirwan say it's not divided we fall. It's divide and rule. It's like, that's it, bro. It's not. They don't want you to fall. They want to rule you. Yeah. And as long as we're banging on about, but I'm left and you're right, and I'm trans and you're not, and you're white and I'm brown, and you know what I mean, we're fucked. We will just be ruled. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then those who don't want to get into that, you can just have your bit of Netflix on your mobile phone.
Sure, man. Like, it's like fucking. I remember I used to go out with this girl from up north, and I remember her dad driving us around Belfast and just rapping around about telling me all, there's the wee pet shop I used to work up, bombed out in 68, and there's the wee whatever over there. And I couldn't take this stuff. It was just mental to me. Having a guy who was actually from there explaining it all. And he was like, but it was around about election time, because they had all these election posters up, and basically a long way around to saying that, you know, he was giving out the fucking complacency shit. They don't even sit in Stormont anymore. And he says the two parties they're as bad as each other, really, Sinn Féin and the DUP, because the guy who gets elected, the person who gets elected, doesn't do so on the basis that they are promised they're gonna fucking get that hospital built, and they're gonna get the levy lifted on your water rate or whatever it is, and actually have to deliver on that. They get in because they're like, well, I'm gonna keep them ones from getting too much, taking up too much space. And in the same way, the other guys are like, so once you have that, it becomes the easiest thing in the world, where you can just stand up and say, you need to vote for me, not because I don't have a fucking plan to benefit you personally, right? But I'm gonna make sure that those whack jobs on the other side don't get in and turn this place into and bring about the apocalypse.
That's basically called political capital. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to say the thing that gives me the political capital to stay in power, basically. Yeah. And that's what they're all doing. And that's the problem. That's the reformation required for the Western political system, probably. I did just want to say one thing to you there quickly. It's just like, we spoke before on a fairly contentious episode we did that was subsequently taken down or made private, and I've because here's the thing, it's like apparently put back up or unprivated. But we spoke before about, it was Sia was doing a thing, and we got onto a conversation about trans athletes and stuff like this. But one thing I did just want to get in a quick idea, and we'll have to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes, but one thing I just wanted to understand or get a quick touch base with you quickly on is that there's a character out there, a person called Dylan Mulvaney. Are you aware? Became popular or famous. I don't know if famous is the right word, but became well known through his or her transitional journey. Did 365 days of becoming a woman, I think, on Instagram. And Dylan Mulvaney was recently made the spokesperson or partnered with Bud Light. And this is sort of how I know. In spite of all, and because the trans thing, I find like almost obsessively interesting at the moment, and the way and it's too varied to get into too much. But this is almost a way in which I know I'm not transphobic, as it were. I take exception to certain aspects of the narrative regarding the trans movement. But like Dylan Mulvaney's the spokesperson for Bud Light, Grant, don't give a fuck. Like, you know what I mean? If Dylan Mulvaney, if that's like, it doesn't. It's a non-event to me.
You weren't shooting up a couple of cases out the back garden or anything.
No,
no.
Of course not. Like, you'd want to be a spa to be going on like that over a beer.
Yeah.
But Dylan Mulvaney has now been made the face of, or the figurehead of, Nike Women's Athletic.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a couple of points to this. That job belonged to Serena Williams.
Right.
A lady of colour, and then that job was taken and given to a trans female. And I think that there's a pattern there of corporate token wokeism, and that stuff really fucking pisses me off, because like, what's woke and what's hot in the sphere of the woke world at the moment? Women of colour, right? Boom, there's Serena Williams. What's hot now? Trans females. Right, get rid of Serena Williams and we'll throw Dylan Mulvaney in there. So it annoys me on two levels. I think it's corporate token wokeism.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? And to be honest with you, I think that's obviously a job for a biological woman, and I'm sorry if that's offensive.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's tied into the sport thing as well. And I'll be honest with you. So first of all, let's just get the thing out of the way, that the corporate token wokeism, absolutely, right? Like, of course. And that's what I mean, what's the alternative? That Nike did this because it's a bit of a risk, but hey, we just believe in it, and maybe our shares
eat that shit up.
Maybe our shares will take a hit, but what's shares? What's money when you can make a difference in the world? Of fucking course, if that was the case, that would be insane. But no, of course they sat in boardrooms and had meetings about this for weeks. And, you know, they were discussing their profit margins and not the moral state of, you know, American society or whatever. And
we just talked about that.
In it, right?
We just talked about that. That these people are there to perform for the shareholders. Anyway, keep going.
But my point is, so that absolutely, I've no contention with that. There, like, they're a corporation and they're obviously they're motivated by money. But for me, with that whole, even what they call it, the transition, the trans debate, I don't take a huge interest in it, I have to say, because it's just not my business, I guess, you know.
Well, it is, of course, your business, because it's.
Well, I
understand where you're coming from, but I do also think it's your business, and I do think there's a hypocrisy at play there.
Well,
like when we talked about it before, Sia used a person who. She was accused of being ableist. And I just can't help but think that there's double standards at play there, because what you've accused Sia of doing, because you just want to accuse someone of something because that's what your agenda actually is, you're not willing to do that with Nike. Surely the same argument for that person is not disabled could be said for the same, like, what that person's not.
So hold on, remind me now to Sia.
Sia was that day, and she had given the part of a non-verbal autistic person to a for want of a better word, normal person. And that was neurotypical actor, and that has been considered to be ableist. And I'm saying, well, if you it's very difficult, because obviously there's a part of me that's gone, but you've after given you've after hiring a man to do a woman's job effectively. There is a part of me that says that, and I understand that is contentious. I don't think that is transphobic, and I could be mistaken there, because I'm not sort of going, and therefore we should kill that person or anything like that. I'm not trying to, whatever, perpetuate any sort of violence or hate or any shit like that. It's not, but I do, and there is a part of me that thinks, and then there's obviously another part of me that's like, yeah, but that person is now a woman, I suppose, because they've transitioned. But again, I just
like fundamentally, I know you'd agree that it goes without saying that everybody should be able to live their life
whatever way they want.
Do what they want.
But I should be able to live my life whatever way I want as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not going around telling people that they have to fucking sign on to my heterosexual ideology of man, women. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that someone should be able to do that to me. You know, we can't, and this is where it all starts to fall down, this whole movement for me, because it's just like, you cannot bend people to your will. And I'm not going to bother trying to bend people to my will, but I'm not going around saying that you have to refer to me in any sort of way. You can call me a fucking cunt if you want. It's your prerogative.
That's a
But yeah, exactly. And as many have before you. But that's your prerogative. And if I don't like that, I have to remove myself from that situation. I have to be responsible for myself. I can't try and make you responsible for me.
To be honest, man, we're so deep, and this is the reason I disengage. I mean, from the issue and from the debate around it, is because it's gone so far down this road where you get a sense when discussing these things, or when when you watch people debating them, or even comedians referring to it, and I'm like, what were we even arguing about? Do you know, that kind of way? It's for me, it's been weaponized again by the media and various bad actors in the media on both sides, who have, again, it's because it's become so one of these hot button issues related to that left-right split.
Yeah.
Related to that divide.
Yeah? Alright, I'm going to be going out in a few minutes, so I'll talk to you later. You were saying that you try not to...
Sorry.
You were saying, like, what is it we're actually arguing over?
Exactly.
And that it's hijacked by the mainstream media.
I think there's another world out there where, and there's so many trying to, there's so many different points where you could point, or we could go back to in history where this divide came from. Like, some people say Nixon kind of started it. Who knows? Some people trace it back to the Kennedy thing. That's not important. But there's another world out there where that divide is not so strong. Where I imagine, let's fantasize here for a second anyway, where there is a world and an America where people just actually still debate things. Maybe there's other kinds of shit going on, but people actually just debate things in a reasonable way and can agree to disagree and actually discuss the issue and whatever else. And the media, there's however many news outlets there are, they do their darnest to report the news as accurately as possible, because if it's discovered that they're not being accurate with their news, then people stop engaging with
that's
that.
Bollocks, though. We now know that that's not true.
No, that's what I'm saying. This is a fantasy world.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Fantasy world. And in that world, there are people who are transitioning, and there are people who identify as a gender other than the one they were assigned at birth, etc. And everybody's just cool with it. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
It's just not an issue.
I would be cool with it. I am cool with it. I just think then that it's just like, and it's just this idea that comes out of this sort of woke language as well. It's like safe space. It's like, that is such bullshit. Do you think there's safe spaces for kids in Aleppo and fucking getting snatched out of the refugee camps in Calais, drowning on boats in the Mediterranean Ocean? This idea that we have to live in a world that's a safe space, that's non-triggering and not damaging to my feelings, is bullshit. And it's total Western privilege, and it's basically flies in the face of your whole ideologue, because it's like, what you're talking about there is privilege. You're not talking about safety, you're talking about privilege. And if you think this world is always going to treat you how you want to be treated, if you think there's not people out there who are going to be fucking assholes to you, you're fucked, man.
Yeah.
You need to get with the program. I just wanted to wrap it up really quickly or ask you a little question. Would you do you disconnect yourself from that conversation because you're afraid of being labelled by people on either side of the conversation?
Yeah, on either side of the debate, that's probably a good way to put it. Yeah, and to be honest with you though, the way things have gotten, like when it comes to my opinion, do you know, I'll tell you this, Ruben, right? Do you know what my opinion is about fucking anything?
What?
It's the opposite of whatever I thought the last time I thought about it.
Okay,
Do you
right,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'm like a self-contrarian. I flip between things constantly.
You're on a journey.
Yeah, right, exactly. So whatever, you can't have a position if you're on a journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I would rather
So
have,
you're only learning.
right, I would rather have the discussion though. I would love to have the discussion is always great. I love chatting about this shit. I love learning more about it. But as far as if it ever comes down to me having to throw my chips down somewhere, I'm just like, I don't see the point necessarily. And also particularly because, well, there's kind of like, what the fuck do I know? And whatever about what I know, where's that information even coming from? Like exactly as we discussed, there is no media, there's no news site, there is no content source on the internet. Let's be honest, it is pretty much all on the internet where we get everything now. That is free from bias. That doesn't stand.
There's one.
There is but one. That's right, son. That's right. So do you know what I mean? That where because even if you,
it's all that's the point. It's like, and everything we spoke about today is just like about agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And usually that agenda is just like you could think the agenda is, it's got some political thing that, you know, Anderson Cooper and fucking Sean Hannity are both, you know, complicit in some, you know, totalitarian plan to take over to lock the, you know, society down. And it's like, no, they're just the fronts of companies that are driven by profit margins, and even that goes from CNN and Fox and the big news sites and Murdoch Empire and all that, right down to guys like yourself, to content creators on social media who realize maybe they report on issues or they discuss things or whatever, but they realize within a short amount of time that actually their metrics, as they call them, or their you know, their views and their whatever the algorithm favors them, whatever way it is, if they make more divisive content. Because not only do people who agree with them watch them and smash that like button, as they say, but people who don't agree with them will also watch them and comment, and other content creators will like put their thing in a thumbnail and, you know, comment on them commenting. So the more extreme shit you say, and so it just becomes this huge self-perpetuating shitstorm hurricane.
Andrew Tate became the most talked about person on planet Earth.
Yeah.
We won't get into Tate now.
Just by saying the most extreme thing.
The most extreme, and delivering everything he said in the most extreme way.
So I'll tell you this, and this is where I'll land on it. When it comes to the debate, and when it comes to me looking at my phone or whatever stuff that comes online and getting my news and all the rest of that, I honestly don't know where I stand with that anymore. I flip between things. Sometimes I think very extreme things, and then I'll have a poo, and I'll be like, okay, actually, those should calm down there. That wasn't. I don't. You know, that was not a sustainable thing to think. But my point is, whatever your information may be coming from, whatever you may be thinking, when you actually meet people in the real world, when you meet people from these different backgrounds, and you work with them, or you socialize with them or anything, and you discover that, geez, like, what is it we're really
100%. And I say it all the time. Like, there is actually realistically only two.
Like you don't hate me just because
of course not.
And I don't fucking hate you. You know that.
There's only, I reckon, like one person who has, or one type of person who is doing things to the detriment of you and me and everyone. It's just like, it's like, literally, it's like political and financial elites and everyone else. It's like, you're either working rich, and even if you're fucking earning 250 G's a year, you're still paying 30-40% of that in tax. You're still working. People with 100 million quid in the bank and everyone else. You know, people with 100 million quid in the bank and upwards and everyone else. That's the only really fucking social, cultural divide we have in the world.
And that gap is getting
massive.
Gap is getting wider.
Massive.
Condensing, tightening. The rich are getting richer. The super rich are getting even richer. And the rest of us are fucking sinking slowly. Yeah.
Elysium, bro. Listen, I have to go because I have to get my young lad. It's a real pleasure, lad. Oh, I just want to say, because we didn't say this, that I'm starting to get the podcast onto Spotify.
Oh,
The
damn.
first 6 episodes, which are episodes that we did together then, are now on Spotify. And you can check them out. And yeah, because I think it's a platform in which people enjoy doing listening to podcasts. Len, thank you so much for
Fucking
coming
pleasure,
on
man.
and fucking
You.
doing episode 50.
Smash that like button.
Smash
Mikey,
the like
smash
button,
that.
smash the subscribe button, put the bell on, all the bells and whistles. Lenny.
Brother.
Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a humble past at one with the ground.